Okay. Yeah.
Welcome everyone. Great presentation tonight. Jared Williams is going to be talking about Chrome developer tools. He is a Google Chrome developer expert, and he is actually going to be sharing some stuff with us that you probably, I want to go as far as you definitely don't know, because he hasn't finished documenting it yet. So,
yep.
Take it away.
Okay, so hi, I'm Jared. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Not really? Can you hear me now? I'm going to turn this off. So, yeah, I work here at Brightcove. I work right upstairs on the consulting team, and I'm a Google developer expert for Chrome. I've been working with Paul Irish, Adi Osmani, and some other people from the Chrome developer relations team to update the documentation for DevTools. So some of the things that I'm going to cover tonight are the DevTools docs and keyboard shortcuts, settings, some of the settings that I'm going to be using for Workspaces, some profiling with the flame chart. I don't know if anybody's seen the flame chart, but it's pretty cool. And some experimental features that are coming out or already available in experiments. And just so you know, most of the stuff is specific for Chrome Canary. So the updates to the DevTools docs, it's like trying to hit a moving target. Everything is so fast moving with DevTools. Like every day there's a new update. So some of the docs might be a little outdated, some more than others, but there's new updates coming to the docs every day. So that's why we're trying to document all the things. So there's a short URL here that you can access the docs, devtools.chrome.com. And so yeah, it brings up the documentation for everything really that you can think of for DevTools, except for like the new features that are still experiments. So increasing your productivity, you should learn the shortcuts, memorize them, use them. Whenever you're using DevTools, it's just, there's no reason for you not to, because they are right in the DevTools. Like you just open up the settings by pressing question mark, and that opens up the general settings, and you just click on shortcuts, and they're all right there. And my little contribution to Chrome itself is the full list of keyboard shortcuts, which links to the docs page for the shortcuts itself, which I am the maintainer of, kind of like became the person to update it and everything. So, and all the shortcuts are listed here for Mac and Windows, Linux. If you see any shortcuts that aren't correct here, you can let me know. I'll update it. Try to do that as quickly as possible, just so that you have it. So yeah, memorize them. It can make your life so much easier. It really can. And so understanding the settings. Are there any settings that anybody doesn't have a full understanding of? I'm guessing there's probably a couple. Yeah? Any settings that anybody wants to know anything specific about, or like, I don't know if there's anyone has a particular setting that they always wanted to know about? No? Let's see what the settings have. Okay, so some of the settings that are new, like the, let's see, in Profiler, high resolution CPU profiling, that's a new setting that just, I think, came out like 2 weeks ago. It's specific for flame charts. I'll show it later on, but it's for basically getting really accurate readings of data for flame chart JavaScript profile. Some other ones like show shadow DOM. You can view the DOM or the shadow DOM elements inside of the elements panel, so that you can see like an input, for example. You can see like the shadow DOM of the input or something. Let's see. Another one is show paint rectangles. You can use this to avoid unnecessary paints on a page. And in combination with show composite layer borders, you can use those in combination to really like figure out what's slowing down a page and try to understand like how to fix it. So yeah, you can use the composite layer borders for things like that, have animations and transforms and transitions. So yeah, on the docs, this is another page that I created for the DevTools docs. The show paint rectangles, this is an example of how you can use it to see like, the rectangle for something that is animated and not straight on the page. And the composite layer border, same thing. You can see that this has a border around it, so you can see it, and the blue lines sort of show how it's skewed, not straight on the page. Searching in content scripts. I don't know if anybody is familiar with what this is. It's mostly used for extension developers so that you can search within the native APIs inside of Chrome so that you can develop extensions. That's really all it's ever useful for. So unless you're trying to develop an extension, you can just keep that turned off. I was kind of surprised to see that because I used to have it always turned on, and I was always like not sure why I was like searching inside of a file that I had no need to search in. You can show the CPU activity on the ruler. So when you're doing a timeline, for example, if you're recording a timeline, then say, well, actually, let me go to the demo. So this is a Chrome experiment that it's like a really cool game that's developed in WebGL 3.js, and so I'm going to use it to show like an example of CPU profile, or the show CPU border. So this is the thing that you can use to tell like how much load is going on the CPU. So stop that. If you hover over it and like keep it on there, it shows you the details of the CPU and what is like the duration, CPU time, message count. Sometimes like on sites that have like really high like JavaScript function calls, these can be really long. You want to try to keep them as small as possible and as few as possible too. And the documentation for all the settings is on the DevTools docs, so you can access them there. It's a little outdated because ever since I wrote it like 2 months ago, there's been so many things changed in the settings. It's kind of crazy. I need to update it. So, but yeah, most of the settings are documented there. You can get a good idea of what is what. So workspaces and using using DevTools as your editor. This is a really cool feature, and it's in the middle of being developed still. So it's kind of it's not yet done, but there's some really cool stuff that you can do with it, and I'll show you an example of it here. So you can exclude folders in a workspace. You can map files to a URL and persist changes in a file to your disk. So let me just show you a demo site that I've created here. So if I open up DevTools, and by the way, the shortcuts that I'm opening DevTools with is the Command Option I. I use that to open and close it. There's also Command Option J and C, so you can open it in inspect mode if you wanted to. So, but if I show you the workspaces, if I'm going to create a workspace, you access it here in the settings, and I've already created it. So let me just add it again. Come on. There we go. So I allow that. Now I can edit the workspace. I can add file mappings here to URLs. I can exclude folders right from here if I wanted to. And when I do exclude folders, say from the sources panel, they will show up in that pop-up too. So if I go to the sources panel, I can view my workspace right here in the sidebar. And if I right-click on a folder, I can exclude it right here, and that will remove it from the sidebar. So I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to, I can only show what I want to see and not have to worry about all the other stuff. So if I wanted to change, like, this testing here, there, hey there, like, I can just go to my index file and, start doing whatever to it, and press save, and reloads it. I made like a quick demo app with Angular, so I have live reload. So you can see the changes automatically persist. If I go look at my file here, you can see that it's not there anymore. And if I add it back, there it is. So the changes persist to the disk. Yes?
Sorry, is the server running locally or?
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're actually doing here.
Yeah, I'm running a local server, so I actually have have this demo site just set up on my website too. I'll add a link to at the end of the slides. I'm gonna put the slides up online after the talk too, so I'll add the link on the meetup page. But yeah, this is just it's just a quick app that I made just using Yeoman and Angular. So I was just using it to show to run locally and edit the files that are on my computer. Yeah, so if I didn't have live reload, I would have to press refresh, and it automatically reloads because I have live reload set up. So yeah, I mean, I can use this to edit like the scripts in the page. So if I wanted to add some more cool stuff, you can see that. You can see that I have that added here. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Like the changes automatically persist to the disk, and if I didn't have live reload, I would just have to press refresh and I'd see the change. I just creating it with Yeoman. I had that extra benefit of having live reload, so I think it's a necessity to have that. It saves a lot of time. I don't have to press refresh every time. So that's Workspaces. And profiling with the flame chart. This is a feature that I'm in the middle of documenting. I'm still not done yet, so I just pulled the stuff from my doc out of that and put it in here, so you guys get to see this before it's actually live and available to everyone. You can use flame charts to view it a couple different ways. So one of those is you can visualize execution paths. So when you do a JavaScript profile, you can use the flame chart to see how your app is being executed, the function call progression, and you can get a better understanding of the execution of the app and the function calls. Another way is you can identify outliers with the color coding. The colors themselves aren't really that important. Basically, a function block is a color that, like the colors are the same functions for each block. So any block that has like orange or something, that's just basically the same function for each block. So the stacks are like the height of the stack isn't that important either. That's just like basically the call stack. The width of the blocks is more important because it's over time. So the longer the block, the longer the more time it takes to make that function call. So you want to try to keep them as short as possible as far as the width of the blocks. And for you can notice outliers like this, for example, is a Chrome extension that was randomly executed for some reason here. So yeah, within this pattern, you can find things like that you can maybe figure out why did it call that, And you can visualize profile data against the timescale. So if you wanted to, for example, do a recording of on the timeline, you can also do a recording on a JavaScript profile and compare the data together. So if you see, like, for example, a lot of yellow on a timeline, that means that there's a lot of script calls happening. So you can use a flame chart recording and determine what's going on there. So for example, I have this little snippet here that will do that. It will create a timeline recording for 5 seconds as well as a JavaScript profile recording. Let me just show an example of flame charts here. This loads. So I start a CPU profile to collect JavaScript data and do some scrolling. This is just a parallax scrolling site. It's got a lot of stuff going on. So, and I can view the flame chart. Normally this would be a heavy bottom up. You'd see it like this, but if you change the drop down here to flame chart, you'll be able to see this, and you can zoom in on this and get a really good like visual reading of this data. It's basically the same data that you see in a regular profile here, but it's like it's a graph, so you can actually get a good idea of what's going on. You can hover over these and get more information about like what's the name of the function call is and how long it took to execute. And you can see, if you zoom out, you can see like that the pattern of function calls happens. This way, like if there was like a random function stack somewhere, like for example right here, this is you can notice outliers of function calls, like why did this randomly get called in the pattern. And back to the setting, the high-res CPU profiles. If you zoom in on this, you notice that the time in milliseconds here it gets really, really small. So it goes down to like, I don't know, a millionth of a millisecond. So it's very, very accurate in how long it takes to actually, execute a function call. So that's, I think, a really cool feature because it makes it so that you can really get an idea of the length of time that you're trying to, these milliseconds is not a very long time, but when you're trying to figure out why was this so long or whatever, it's really helpful to understand. And so that's flame charts. I think flame charts is a really cool feature. I don't know. It's one of my favorite things in DevTools. I'm hoping that I get the doc live soon. And some new stuff. So to enable the experiments in DevTools, you want to go to About Flags, which brings you to the Chrome flags, and you scroll down to where DevTools enable developer tools experiments. So you just turn that on, and then you'll have to reopen Chrome so we can have that in it. And so font stacks, it's not an experimental feature, but it's new in Chrome. So if you want to, like, say I want to inspect this and see what the font stack of this is, in the computed style panel on the elements, it gives you the font family. So like, and it can give you like the number of glyphs that it has in it, and so that's kind of a new little feature that's in Chrome now. So framework debugging and support. So if I turn that on, go to experiments, enable frameworks debugging support, and that provides me basically the ability to skip stepping through sources with particular names. So if I have a breakpoint set on a piece of code that will eventually call something like jQuery, like adding a class or something, I can skip going into jQuery and not ever have to worry about going through all the jQuery stuff and stuff with Angular. Any library, I don't really want to go through and like step through each function call, and it can be time consuming to just get back to your code, and you can figure out what's going on there. So you can enable this and add whatever libraries or whatever you want. Yeah.
Does that do anything interesting with, like, say you're working on caught exceptions and exception handling?
I don't know. I haven't really worked with that. I mean, it's still experimental, so it might. I can't say for sure. I haven't ever had a experience where that happened. That's a good question, actually.
It just, it happens with.
Yeah, because I mean, if yeah. Yeah, I've had that happen to me when I'm like working with jQuery. I have the pause on uncaught exceptions, and it breaks in jQuery, and I don't know. I haven't tried doing that yet, but yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's a great feature. I wish that there was I wish it was more more flexible. I don't know. I'm kind of curious now about that. I want to try it out. So stepping candidates while debugging. Paul Irish posted a quick like a video that has a whole bunch of experiments on it that I'm going to show a clip of him talking about this because it's pretty cool. I don't know if you can hear it.
And what that means is you come over here.
Oops, what's going on? Sorry. I don't know what happened there. I'm guessing it's the mic.
You turn this guy off or just take him away.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah, that is an experimental feature. You can turn it on in the experiments, and it basically makes different functions or different things inside of a script clickable, like a link, and you can choose what you want to step into instead of like stepping through a whole like bunch of functions just to get to a specific function that's like chained onto a bunch of other ones. So yeah, that. And then layers panel. This is actually pretty cool. I just realized this was a thing on Monday this week. So I'm going to use this site for example, and I open up this, and you can enable the layers panel here on the experiments. It creates a new panel right here, which you can see when I hover over these. This is basically highlighting all the divs and stuff of the animation, and I can take this and drag it, and I can see like a 3D view of it. Yeah, so this is pretty cool, and I can actually click on these, and it opens up the elements over here. I can see what's going on, and then I can right click on these over here, and I can view them in the panel, the elements panel. So I think that's a pretty cool feature. I think it should be documented, actually. I'm going to have to get on that. Okay, so, and a couple other things, screencasts and screenshots, they're coming. I can't really say much more than that because I don't know. I just know that they're coming out soon. And another link here, when I add the slides online, you can access this link. It brings you to the list of bugs that are fixed and all the updates that have been made to DevTools. So if you wanted to keep track of things, like you could see, like, let's see, inspect devices, like console table is fixed and or drunk or whatever it is. So yeah, you can basically get an idea of like what's new, what's going to be in Chrome or in Canary at least, and see what's coming down the pipeline, pretty much. And that's it. So if there's any questions. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite shortcuts?
I use, like I said, the Command Option I to open and close, Command Shift C or Command Option C, that opens in inspect mode. When I'm in the DevTools, I can use Command square brackets to navigate through. That's pretty big time saver, especially with the new UI changes. Like you can see all these icons are up here in the top right, so it cuts off a lot of stuff on the toolbar. So I can't really see as much anymore here. If I wanted to go to the console, I got to click on this thing and then go down here. That's annoying. I can just do this and tab over to it basically, but it's not tabbing. Let's see some other ones. I don't know. Those are the main ones. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more. Yeah.
Command Option C. and Shift-C
Yeah.
to go into like
Inspect mode. Yeah. Yeah, that's another one that I use. I use, like, if you press it once and press it again, like this will turn it on. You can see I don't know if you can see that the icon is blue, but if I press it again, it turns it off. So basically, it turns it on and off for me. Yeah. Yeah, that's a Chrome extension. It's called Battering. There's actually, let's see if I can, I don't remember the URL, but just a heads up, there's going to be I think Addie's working on making a new page for the DevTools extensions specifically. So there's going to be like a place where you can look at all DevTools extensions and all the framework like Ember and the Backbone one and the Angular one and like a whole bunch of other ones. It's a huge list of DevTools extensions that are on it. So that should be coming out pretty soon. It's just a list of all it's like pulling from the Chrome Web Store. It's like all the extensions. So you can see all DevTools extensions in one place. Oh, the Angular one is, let me bring up my app here. Yeah, it's basically a debugger. It's pretty useful. You can see all your scopes and stuff, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with it. You can find what's going, like the performance of something, and there's a lot of different things. Basically, it's for debugging Angular apps. Any other questions?
I somewhat recently discovered like the Chrome console API.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any of those that you use?
I use the console all the time. Yeah, I mean, there's documentation on the doc site that cover all of them, but actually there's new stuff coming out for what is it? The timeline, the timeline API for basically recording timelines, and it's there's a lot of new stuff. I'm not sure exactly what new stuff is coming, but I know there's some cool stuff coming with that. But yeah, for console, like I pretty much use console log all the time. But when I'm working in the console itself, I just type whatever, and I let the autocomplete do its thing. So. Oh yeah. So I don't really use those all that much personally. I mean, for some things, like if I'm doing, like if I wanted to get say when I'm using making an Angular app, I have this element selected. If I go here and do Angular element and $0, I can get the scope of it this way. Yeah. Yeah. That's for when I'm using battering. I can just access it right here. But if I didn't have battering installed, I don't think you can do that. It would just you'd have to do what I just did, because that's just basically using Angular to do it. Yeah.
What's the best way to pull like jQuery into the
I believe jQuery is included by default. I could be wrong about that.
That's just alias to.
Yeah.
You can just do dollar and then.
Yeah.
create a bookmark that just downloads the CDN.
I personally try to not use jQuery, so. Any other questions? Yep. Actually, yeah. I meant to talk about that. So with Workspaces, you can use source mapping. So if I go into my my styles here, let's see, I can edit my SAS file right here, and I have to have the setting turned on. So oops. So if I turn this setting on, which it is, I can then I can use source maps right here. I'm like editing my SAS. I can change this to be black if I wanted to, and save, and should be fresh, hopefully. I just do question mark. Question mark brings up general settings. It used to bring up the shortcuts. I want to tell them to change it back to that because that's like how it is on every other Google thing, like Gmail and everything. Because there's already, you can do F1 as well. That brings up the settings.
So enable CSS source maps allows you to.
Yeah, yeah. So you can edit like if I had like a built SAS file that was compiled from, or built CSS file compiled from SAS, it would tell me, it would have like a comment on the like each line for each CSS selector or whatever. It would have a comment saying where it was located and what file. Like if I had a bunch of modular CSS or SAS files, it would tell me which file it was in too. I don't have an example of that though. Any other questions?
Can you demonstrate
I don't have any like offhand right now. I don't know, like what do you mean exactly? Like something that pops up?
Yeah.
I'd have to, I don't know, I'd have to find like an example. Yeah, I don't know. I offhand, I don't have anything.
When you choose hover or active, top right.
What do you mean in this? I'm not sure what you mean.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Where is it?
Angular UI site tag.
Tooltips. So you're talking about like something like that? Or is that like because it's active?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I do that, and then I have this set to be hover. Yeah, I mean, this is like, I guess, more in the debugging thing. Like, I don't know how they have it set up, so. Yeah, that's JavaScript, so. Yeah. Yeah, if it was CSS, it would definitely work. I can have a break on, so if I wanted to, maybe that'll work. No, because it's basically appending a whole div inside of that. So wait, maybe if I break on subtree, there. Well, I can have it break on subtree. So that's what I just did. So if you right click on that, it can break on subtree modifications, and that'll basically, when you hover over it, it'll bring you to the line of code. So this is where it's happening. Yeah, I mean, but when I hover over it, it's actually, there's a whole div of stuff like being appended to it. So it's, well, no, because they're not there. Because every time let me just let me play this out. So it's basically appending it's appending a whole set of, like, this isn't there when I first, like, when you first view it, but when I hover over it, it's going to add that to it. So that's not going to be there. And when I hover off of it, it's going to go away. So you can't like traverse the DOM and see it because it's not there yet. Yeah, sure. So let's see. Do I have that on? Shadow DOM. Yeah. Okay. So let me turn this off. Let's see, this might have one. Helps if I have like an actual input element. So this right here is a shadow DOM. You can see that it's grayed out. Shows you the click me that's inside of the shadow root. So for another example would be like a file upload input. That has like a button that by default. So if you wanted to edit the text of that button, you could do that by accessing the shadow root, and you could see the shadow element of it by viewing the shadow DOM. Is there any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're recording this, so this will go up.
Yeah.
We have a moment for announcements. I want to take a second to thank Startup Institute for providing the delicious food and stickers that everyone's on their seat. Do you want to say a word?